Steven with Parts Doctor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the power terminal block in the Samsung dryer. The tools needed are listed in the description below. Let's get started. A bad electrical connection can cause the terminal block to get hot and burn out over time. If your block is burned, your dryer may not get proper power supply. This can cause the dryer to not power on or run. On electric dryers, the dryer may power on and run, but not heat properly. The main reasons we see a terminal block burned out is if the power cord isn't tightened properly to the terminals, or if the cord strain relief, which is designed to help stop wires from pulling against the terminals, is not installed. When installing a new terminal block, it is important to use the correct crimper, heat shrink tubing, and installation process. Doing this repair quickly or using the incorrect tools or parts may cause more damage to your dryer. For this repair, unplug or disconnect power to the dryer. With access to the back of the dryer, remove the power terminal cover to access the electrical connections. Then, remove the power cord from the terminal block by loosening the screws and removing the wires. Ours is already removed, so we will skip this step. Now, remove the two screws holding on the top cover. Next, place your foot at the bottom of the dryer, place your hands on the top, and pull towards you until the top cover releases. This may require some force. Then, remove the ground screw and the two screws holding the terminal block in place. Now, pull the terminal block out. If the terminal block is burnt out, be sure to take the time to inspect the wires connected to the terminal block. If the main harness wires are burnt too much for a new terminal block to be connected, you'll need to replace the entire wiring harness. Now, keep note of the position of each wire connected to the terminal block. We will need to place them in the same order when connecting to the new block. You can either label them or take a photo to reference later. Next, using a wire cutter, cut each of the three main harness wires as close as possible to the terminal block just behind the crimp connector. The old connectors and block can be discarded. If you have a bad terminal block and you need to purchase a new one, you can check out our website, partsdoctor.com. We'll leave a link in the description below. You want to make sure you're searching with the model number from the tag on your dryer to make sure you get the correct part. Before installing the new block, we will need to remove each of the three metal terminals from the block so we can connect them to the main harness. Using a small flat blade screwdriver, pry the two metal retaining pins back to release the terminal from the plastic retainer. Then, tilt up and out to remove. Repeat the same on the other two terminals. These terminals use an open barrel design. The outside barrel should be crimped around the wire insulation, while the inner barrel should be crimped around the exposed wire. Next, remove the old wire heat shrink. Now, using a wire stripper, remove approximately 1/4 inch of insulation from each of the three main harness wires. It should be just enough to fit in the inner barrel of the connector. Next, slide new 10-gauge heat shrink tubing over the wires. This part doesn't come with shrink tubing, so you'll need to buy it separately. Now, place the wire into the terminal. Make sure that the insulated part of the wire does not go past the lower edge of the outside barrel, and that the exposed wire fills the entire inner barrel. Next, using a 1210 gauge open barrel crimper die, crimp both the insulated and exposed portions of the wire into place at the same time. The crimper is taller on one side and shorter on the other. The portion of the connector holding the insulated section of the wire should be placed into the taller part of the crimper, and the lower section holding the exposed wire should be placed in the shorter portion of the crimper. With the terminals connected, slide the heat shrink tubing over top of both terminal barrels. And use a heat gun to shrink the tubing into place. Be careful not to damage the wiring harness. Now we can install the terminals back into the plastic block, making sure to put them in the correct order. If needed, reference your photo from earlier. Then, use a small screwdriver to push the metal retaining pins back under the plastic retainers. Next, install the terminal block on the dryer by placing through the opening, attaching the block with the 2 screws, and securing the ground wire to the frame. To reinstall the top cover, make sure the rear of it, which is noted by the gray pieces, is facing the rear of the dryer. Align the top cover guides to the opening in the top cover. Continue to push forward until it locks back in place. Next, reinstall the 2 screws. Finally, reconnect the power cord, plug it in, and test it out to make sure everything's working properly. So that's it for this video. If you learned something new, hit that like button. And if you enjoy fixing things, please consider subscribing.